Welcome to Inside the Space with the Millers. I'm Krista.
And I'm Cory. We've spent our lives in sports, dance, raising kids, building a business. But most importantly, we've been learning and growing every step of the way.
Here, we'll share the real story of chasing dreams, overcoming obstacles, raising kids, and most importantly, celebrating the small victories that make it all worth it.
This is the space where passion meets purpose and where we get to be honest about our journey. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Inside the Space with the Millers. I'm Cory.
And I'm Krista. And today we are going to talk about balance. I think balance is a big one when we're talking about families, marriage, kids, dance, work life, all the things. And this is a tricky topic for me.
Yeah, so I thought, why don't we just, make a little list of things that, have happened in our life, things that are important to us, and kind of walk through a few of them and we can talk about them. So why don't we start first, just because, we've been there before, but just the pressures of social media on giving everything all the time, never. And if you don't rest, then someone else is pushing harder than you. What do you feel like is from your perspective, from the last 24 years, of that how do you balance that pressure of social and the next kid or the next mom giving that kid one extra class or pushing them a little bit extra, and then you think, oh my gosh, they're going to be ahead of my daughter or my son. Yeah, Tell me your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think balance for me is truly probably the hardest thing. You've been such a good balancer. I might be good in balance on my pirouettes, but balance.
You talk about that a lot in technique, right? is opposition and balance.
Yes, exactly. Is a little tricky. I think especially with social media, as we're watching what everyone else is doing constantly. And you're seeing so-and-so's taking their kids to all these classes. So-and-so's getting privates over here for soccer for this, or taking them to this special trainer, all of these things that, in life, when you're raising kids or, young adults to kind of follow and chase their dreams, what could we do to kind of help that one-up process? And I think being able to understand how the balance really does matter is important, especially with social media. I am a little trickier. If I'm on that phone and I want to keep looking, my mind will really relate to what I'm watching. And when I actually take the phone and set it down and actually think about what is it that I really do want to do? What do the kids really want to do? What do the students really want to do? How I balance that for me is really important. And I have to make a very intentional effort to put it down so that what I'm watching doesn't control what my brain thinks I should do.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think the other part of it is, looking at your own kids' progress and at their own development in terms of whatever it is they're doing as a separate thing than what we scroll and see, because they're so different. We don't understand what maybe that kid or that family or that parent is going through, and we just see a glimpse of maybe, oh my God, they went to a class. Oh my God, they got a private from so-and-so. Oh my God, then we see them at a comp and they win a comp. So you start creating your own story about what success is for them, right? For that dancer or that athlete. And I think that's where you can get into trouble. And I feel like for us, it took a little time to kind of realize that. I remember even early days in Harbor soccer, and it was I was taking him, he had school, I pick him up straight from school, straight to practice. Then he'd have a private. Then he would want to go play futsal late at night. And if he had a bad day or something didn't go good or he got a bad grade or he struggled in school, that would affect, what he did. Or if he didn't eat correctly and didn't have a great meal, all of a sudden that would affect his performance. And I think, being able to step back and really look at what your kid needs for their development is super important.
Well, I was just actually kind of thinking about how interesting it's been, obviously, because we work together every day.
Yeah.
We are in the same home every day. We're eating, we're doing all the things. So even you and I have to keep a balance of what it is, even with the kids, what it is with our marriage. But the thought, I had this story, this very thought, even as they are in, Harbor's 18 and Autumn is now 24. And just a few months back, there was this thought that Harbor was actually going to start with the LA Galaxy for the very first time. And they were doing this big story. They called us in the morning and said, okay, can you do an interview down on the field? Can you get here? Can you bring your family? And we were just like, wait. It was the exact same day that Autumn was leaving for J Balvin's tour.
Wow,
and so one of us was trying to get her situated and organized and ready and off. And then she didn't want to miss this from him. And we were literally, and I remember on social media, like I was trying to post something for her and something for him and going, oh, I was so proud of them and excited, right? The mommy proud moment. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, all this is happening. I'm worrying about social, but I really need to be there in the moment with both of them. And for me, that was a big moment of like, wait, they're grown adults, they can handle it, but I still want to be, in the mix. But I also, how do I actually take my brain out of social media? Wait a second. What does he need? What does she need? And really get down to it. So that was a really interesting balanced moment for us that literally just happened 4 months ago.
Yeah, no, that's insane. Yeah. I remember because, even them, they get so excited. And we sometimes, especially because these are like dream come trues for both of them. And they've been working and pushing and trying to get to this level of success for them, right? Like this was Harbor's dream. Autumn has been dancing and working and finally gets this big tour. And so at the same time as we're all like excited to celebrate this, we also have to go back to the reality of like, what are their emotions? They're nervous. They have a lot of expectations. There's people that have expectations of them. And how can we support them in that, And I think that's what you and I kind of really have learned a lot in the last like 12 months, I would say, is like, stepping back and being like, okay, how can we support them emotionally as well? How can we give them, encouragement, not judge them anymore because they've already done the work, like the work is done. Everything that up until this point is going to be what it's going to be. Yeah. And trusting that, I think that's a big thing, is trusting that they've worked hard. We, even as a family, we've sacrificed a lot along the way, and now they're at this place, and now like enjoy it, try to like sit in it. Like you said, I love that you said, like, try to be present in that moment and enjoy what they're going through.
Well, and lastly about social media, and we'll kind of move on, is even as a business owner, right? So it's like you're kind of watching, well, what are these people doing? What's that happening? And all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, put your blinders on, know where you are, feel confident in that. And it's good. You want to be motivated. You and I talk about that a lot, like being motivated by what other people are doing. So I think
inspired, is a really good word. Yeah.
Inspired, motivated. I think it's really great because so many people are sharing so much out there. It's almost an influx of information, but at the same time, it is inspiring to watch or listen to someone talk about something or see other people do things. So I think also with your own kids or your students or your spouse, be inspired and motivated by that, and kind of let the social media just kind of be itself, and again, stay in the present.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. Stay in the present. Yeah. I love that.
Okay. Work-life balance. I mean, this is our life right now.
Yeah. I really feel like work-life balance is a rhythm, and I know this, I always kind of talk about this, and it like goes back to dance, but like, when like you're dancing and you're in that moment and it's just everything's flowing and it feels good. Like, I feel like work-life balance is that rhythm of like, you knowing what I'm going to do before I do it, me knowing what you're going to do before you do it, kind of anticipating what's next, But more importantly than that is maintaining, like you said, a healthy eating, sleep, is all of that balanced? Are you not sleeping and then working really hard? Are you sleeping a lot, but then not working as hard? Like, is that out of balance?
Well, it's like overdoing it, underdoing it.
Yeah.
What are we doing? We talk a lot about just being on the same page. And sometimes when we're out of sync or out of balance, even as a relationship is hard. I'm like, you're annoying me. But it's so interesting because we've learned also, we tease about a little bit, you being a Pisces and me being Aries, very yin and yang. We are the opposite signs to be getting along and be married 29 years. It's interesting. We've actually taught each other a lot, but we also have to step back again, be intentional, be present, and understand what the other person or even your kids are going through. I think, again, when our kids were a little bit younger, it was more of how hard can we kind of push so that they can really get up into where they want for their dreams. And actually the kids were the ones that actually were telling you, but not telling you, were showing signs of fatigue. We're showing signs of irritability. We're showing signs of exhaustion. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm shoving them out there to keep doing these things. They're actually telling you by even the physical part of their body, and being able to start to recognize and witness that is interesting. And it's the same thing, I think, with even the programs, right? Get all excited about, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to train. All of a sudden we get to Thursdays sometimes and the students are looking at us like we're crazy. And it's like, oh, we need to really come down. We need to change that class. We need to figure those things out. And it's taken a lot of years and to see what works or not. But it's very interesting if you are present and intentional, you can actually see the signs of when you're overdoing it, I think, for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's really important even to step back and take a moment sometimes. I mean, initially when we started the program, we wanted to finish early so that families could actually have dinner together.
That's the reason why we did it.
That's one of my favorite things, honestly, that we do as a family right now, especially since we redid our kitchen and we have like this really cool little table that we all sit at, is actually having a moment to like, hey, how was your day? What are the highs and lows of your day? And kind of going around the table. And it helps us understand what the kids are going through. It helps us understand what we're going through. It also helps us think about what we need to do in the next like stage or the next season, It's funny.
Seasons is on here. Like sometimes it's a more of a push. Sometimes it's not, right? So for us, summertime is a little bit more of where we get a little bit more of the downtime when we finish our summer events and our programs are out of season. And I think that that's a little difficult because I want to go back to the word, underdoing it. Like, am I not doing enough to prepare, to be ready?
Well, we have a business to run and everybody's doing
gosh,
stuff.
We're starting and like, I need this. And like, for me, it's a lot of back end, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting thing to like, when I think of underdoing it, am I not doing enough? How much rest do I even have for myself? Do I take a week of just not doing anything? I'm more of that person that needs a little bit every day to make me still feel that I'm not underdoing it. Yeah. Whereas like you might be a little different. Sometimes you're like, I just don't want to do anything in the sense of business for 3 days because that makes you feel so much better on the 4th day. And everybody handles that really differently.
But then I can go and run a marathon for a week on
a year.
Everything. Yeah, I know it for sure. And I feel like that's where you kind of find that balance.
And as a dancer, you're forced to take rest, right? So you might be working, hired for 10 jobs in a row or on a tour for 6 months. Then you might get home and not have any work for 3 months. It's so, inconsistent or hit or miss. So I think it is important when you do have the downtime, even with Harbor, their season, when they finish, they only get about a month off, really maybe 6 weeks. And again, after 3 or 4 weeks, everybody wants to keep pushing, but really your body and your physical mentality is also telling you, take a minute. And I think it's really interesting to listen to your body.
Yeah. And to like, look at the track record of your of even your training or your, the last 6 months, it's been fun to have the Oura Ring, cause it's really been an interesting journey to find out like, it's not just about one day of sleep or not sleep or one day of exercise or no exercise. It really looks at it in like a little bit more of a month or 2 month span and kind of helps you understand where the balance is. Like, so if you've looked at a chart and you were like, okay, I worked out a lot and then, your chart spikes, but then the next day you don't do anything. So it like dives. But what if you kind of slowly went
averaged it
out? And I feel like that is really the sweet spot, even in sports and training and dance, because what happens is a lot of people spike up and they do everything they can. And then the next day they die, right. Or they don't do anything. And then they do a crazy thing again. And then all of a sudden spikes, but there's no like balance to the, it's just this up and down kind of journey, and your body's never recovering. Your mind's never recovering. So finding that like, okay, hey, I'm going to find a schedule that I can stay in that feels like a really nice balance where I know for sure I'm going to take nights off and have dinner, or I'm going to train really hard for 5 days and then take a day off. And, mixing that with like riding a bike, mixing it with going to the beach, mix it with, other activities that maybe aren't the activity you're doing. It's a big thing in dance right now to train in kind of like alternative activities that you wouldn't normally do, right? Because this is another big thing. I don't know if I'm kind of getting off tangent here, but like even in the dance business, you know, they're talking about overtrained dancers, meaning that they're like robotic. They're really talented. They're amazing. But then they get on a set for a movie that's looking for pedestrian type of movement, and they're giving you dance. And like, that's not what the director wants, or that's not what the creative calls for. And so adding that into your training, I think, is another super undervalued thing that no one's talking about, because it's just like, how can I get more? How can I train more? How can I get better? Well, maybe getting better means going to the beach and listening to the waves and sitting on the thing, or doing cartwheels in the sand. You know, maybe getting better means, you know, going to the, you know, park and playing, I don't know, tennis with your friends, or basketball, or some sport that you don't normally do. Maybe it's riding a bike, you know, like maybe that is part of the training that you don't really know you're missing because your body's doing movement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does.
Do I get out there sometimes?
It's okay. You get out there a little bit. So for me, the takeaway is discipline includes rest. It's not always training. And I think, when are the times to rest? You know, it's like I said, you know, injury is a big time to rest. Your body is telling you it is tired, and it needs to have recovery. And that's something like with Harbor Soccer that is so interesting. They take such good care of these boys, these men, and the recovery is actually just as important. It's the same. 50% is training and 50% is recovery every single day, even when they're not injured. And I think that is really interesting. As a dancer, we are sometimes forced to push through. And sometimes we have to push through if we have some big audition, or we have something that's, you know, we're in the middle of a show, you know, you have to push through.
What are the times to push through?
Well, I think,
what would you think are the times to push through or not push through?
I think let's think about like a big opportunity, like an audition. Okay. For instance, I remember when, you know, Autumn was auditioning for Beyonce, for instance, and she had an audition, and they said, you know, you have a call back the next day, goes back the next day, does it again for, you know, and these are 5 to 6 hours of dancing
in high heels
and came home on the second night and was saying, oh my gosh, I have this strange kink in my neck. It really just feels kind of funny. Oh my gosh. You know, oh, I don't like it. And I was like, okay, let's go to the chiropractor. Let's rest it. Let's ice it. And didn't know anything that there would be a third or a fourth or a fifth callback, right? So gets a call that evening when she's in a lot of pain, and Autumn has a very high pain tolerance, and basically goes to the chiro. She says, oh, you need to rest this. Like, this is not good. It's a pinched nerve. You know, the more you whip your head around, and obviously they're whipping their heads around and, you know, doing all the fun things, strutting around. They said they called around 8 p.m. and said, okay, tomorrow morning, going back in for a callback. We're, you know, it's changing out different people, And like, I forget the time, 10 a.m. And I remember the tears just coming down her eyes, like, what do I do? And I looked at her and I said, you know, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. So if it is that painful and it's crazy, don't go. But at the same time, if you think you can make it through one more day of this, I think let's do everything you can. And she agreed. She was like, okay. So again, she was icing and heating and all the things that she was told to do. And went the next day and said it was really painful in the beginning, but when she kind of warmed it up, and lo and behold, she had to go back 2 or 3 more times and, you know, made it through, and she pushed through and was able to, you know, join that tour when someone else had gotten injured. So it's very interesting. That was a big push. But now, for instance, if you were just taking a dance class and tomorrow you had to show up, let's say, to the studio for us to take classes, I don't think I would have wanted a student or my own daughter to push through with something like that. That could have led to more damage.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's a great
good example.
100%. Yeah. And I think that's where we get confused, which times are important, because we're told so much that every single time you're in front of a choreographer, it's important because you never know what job you're going to get. Or every time, you know, the coach is like, because if they see you not performing or not dancing, you know, then all of a sudden they're going to think differently of you, right? So that's another big thing I feel like.
Well, I think it's tricky too, because you need to build resilience. So sometimes you have to push through things, because sometimes, you know, kids can get a little wimpy in the sense of like, oh, I'm the, you know, all the time.
Or using it as an excuse.
Use it as an excuse. Yeah. Now, again, once you kind of learn that those excuses, if you're really not hurt, only hurt you, that's a little bit different. But you do have to build resilience and know when to push through. And I think it's really more in like a big opportunity, or you're in the middle of a show, or you're, in the final game or something like that. I think knowing pain versus growth, or pain versus harm, those are different. Like, again, if the neck was so bad and you couldn't do anything, I don't think anyone would be recommending that. And you kind of have to start to know it in your own body. Because even when students or kids come to me and say, hey, this is hurting, my natural reaction in a classroom setting is, okay, let's ice it, let's sit, let's see how it feels in the next couple hours, let's get some PT, let's go with where it's going first in 24, 48 hours before you start going crazy. Now, again, if we had a show tomorrow and this was today and someone came to me, it would be more of like, can you get through the next 24 hours, because you will be getting rest after that.
I think too, it's knowing what, is it a muscle soreness or is it an actual injury? I think that's another big thing. Because like if you're just fatigued, that's a different story than if you're like pulled ligaments and you can't tell the difference of what that is. And
I think even for me, I've been having hip pain for probably about the last 6 months. And I just thought, okay, my hip flexors are tight. I'm always in passe. I'm doing a bot mod. There's just so much happening there that, okay, it's just irritated. It's flared. I kept stretching it. I kept kind of just like, it's going to go away. It's going to go away. I'm going to roll it. And it just continued to feel really irritated. And finally, doctors were like, maybe you should go and get an MRI, which I was scared to death to do. But I did, and found out that I have a tear in my labrum, which is basically around your hip flexor. Now I'm doing everything in my power to not have surgery, because I don't know if this will work the same. And this is literally my livelihood, my passe. But whether it's peptide shots, it's less stretching because I was actually irritating, more PT, icing, all the things that, we're telling all the kids to do. And now,
so you're going through it.
So I'm literally going through it. Now it's kind of had some great weeks. It's had some down weeks. And then it just right now feels like it's in a plateau. So what do? I'm kind of at that point, like I maybe I just leave it alone. But again, I know for me, when I can push, I was pushing too hard, thinking that I was helping it, and I actually was making it worse. So once I did find out what it was, so being able to see a doctor or see a therapist or something, I think when something is chronic like that is very important.
Yeah. And when you're 15 to 21, you heal very quickly.
Over the hill was what he's saying. Like me, it's a whole nother thing, right?
No, you just have to do a little bit extra.
I think sacrifice is definitely required, but I don't think it has to be reckless.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Just, in terms of sports and dance and choreographers or instructors or coaches, what advice would you have for a student that, they're sitting on that fence of like, I want to like impress them and always be doing my best in front of the coach or the teacher, but I know that I can't all the time. Like, how do they know when is the right time to give it 110% and when is the time to pull back a little bit?
I think a lot of that is based on the character of the dancer or the athlete, because I know students when they are kind of giving me a weak excuse because of their character, what they've already done the last year, right? Maybe they don't show up on time. Maybe they don't work hard all the time, even when they're not injured. Maybe their attitude isn't amazing. And I know the students or, other people that are always hardworking would never come to me and say, hey, oh my gosh, I can't show up the way I want to show up. I think it's a lot more in the way you show up in a mental form, in a personality, in your character really builds when things like that happen. So then I think it's very easy to tell. And again, I don't want someone just trying to show off for a certain reason if they have never really been that person. I don't need anyone to show off. I need someone to consistently show me that they're going to show up, be responsible, work hard, and use their journey in just a slow growth period. I'm fine. Because some of the superstars out there, it's the truth, whether it's an athlete or a dancer or an actor, sometimes they're so full of themselves or hot-headed that I don't think that they get along with everybody. And sometimes you end up burning those bridges because their character doesn't match up with what I think maybe a coach or a mentor or a teacher or a director would really want.
Yeah. I think it's always interesting to me to see what would you do and how would you train if, you didn't have an audience, or you didn't have a coach or a teacher or a choreographer.
Well, with social media, everyone has an audience.
I know, but like,
it's very different
but
now.
maybe it's something to think about, like digging in yourself.
Silent.
Like, what do you really love about this sport or this activity or this, artistic venture that you're on? Like, would you do it just as hard and work just as hard if nobody was watching? Because that's kind of, to me, like when you see those true, like,
artists, yeah.
they're the ones that would do it no matter what.
I think I had a little sign that was above our Autumn's bedroom door that said, dance like no one's watching. Ooh. And I think there's a lot of kids out there that basically dance completely different when they're at home by themselves, or, last time you're in your car and you're just like jamming out and you're having these fun feelings, and it feels real, right? Like, and I think that's how improv has become so popular, because it's actually a skill set, but it's also started from you just feeling something and being on the floor. Yeah. And now we have, more, regimented improv. But I mean, true improv just started by someone just moving and feeling, and no one was watching. It's just like what you felt yourself. I also think there are students and athletes that are better in trainings than they are on the big stage, or better in trainings than they are on the big field. Some people are so risen to the higher moment, they're not the best class takers, or they choose not to be the best class taker, but then when they're on the stage, it's like they are stars. And so it's very interesting, that question, because I'd be very curious. I feel like I've always been the person that loves the grind. I mean, I am 5 to 7 days a week, I like my gym. I am 5 to 7 days a week, I check my emails. 5 to 7 days a week, I eat a certain way. I've always loved the process. But then there is a feeling when you got into that higher stage that was like, wow, all this hard work paid off. And it just, had a fame moment where you were out there. So for me, I loved it all. But I truly, my heart of hearts has always been in the training. And then the stage and the shows and the performances were all bonus. But that's not for everyone.
Yeah. Well, and it's also not luck anymore. It's you've paid your dues. You've worked hard to be where you're at, and it's just another training day. I learned a lot from Harbor in that, because even during COVID, when people had an excuse to not like work or not like continue, it was like, oh, it's COVID, we can all just like stay at home.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though it was a bad thing, it was like a great thing for especially a lot of entertainers who are always on the road and always having to be busy, and so everyone got to rest. But then who were the people that continued to train and continued to stay proactive in everything they were doing? It wasn't necessarily for an award. We didn't know what was going to happen in the next, years to come after that. It was a really scary place. So what was it that was motivating you? What was it that was like continuing you to like train or progress? And like, I mean, even you saying, I like the grind. I like to work every day, and makes me feel good every single day.
I'm a checker.
Yeah.
I like my checks.
But then after 6 months, you look back at your checkers and you're like, wow, I have a whole bunch of checks and I feel great today,
Accomplished. Yeah. I think for me, it was always about that. It was like that in school, right? Like everybody, again, has a different, approach. But
I think it's dangerous now, because you see social media and you see, it looks like somebody just got there out of luck. Right? But they didn't. They actually worked to get there.
Yeah. How about, this is a good one for us to talk about. How about marriage and parenting balance?
Ooh.
I mean, we always talk about.
Do we want to start a fight on the podcast? Just kidding.
I think balancing kids with careers, and both of us have come from careers before we even, started the space. I think the balance was interesting, because even growing up, I had to balance what it was like when my mom told me, you have to go to college before you're going to be able to be a dancer. And I was like, wait, I don't have to go to college. I'm not going to do this, right? So I remember having to balance college and auditioning and being a Laker girl, and really knowing that I wanted this. But in order to make my parents happy at that time, which I am happy that I did it, got my, degree, it was a really interesting, and it was the first time I think I really had to start balancing what it was that I wanted and moving out and making money. Now, how am I going to make money and go to school, make them happy? And so it was a very interesting way for me to kind of start, I think, my new adulthood. And then it kind of brings me into, you bring a relationship into the mix, and now you're balancing, again, you were traveling on the road, you were, a rock star in your own world. And so that was also something I was like, oh my gosh, my boyfriend at the time, soon to be husband, is traveling all over the world, and just
and
all
the
these
skate
different
industry
things.
was, it was quite alternative. I mean, it was like it wasn't about training. It was more about living in the moment.
Lifestyle.
And it was. I mean, it was about giving it your all in that moment and living in that moment right there, right then, and not really having a plan, And so that was actually, really hard for me as we started to like combine and connect and dance this, marriage and parenting thing. But I think it also really opened my eyes to, getting back to balance. It really opened my eyes to like, you can't always be 100% all the time. You have to find this like push and pull. And you really brought that to me because you were, so organized like that. And I wasn't. And so the best part, I think, about this balanced conversation and even parenting our kids is the fact that we found that balance between us in terms of push and pull of like, even the kids, how hard to push, how hard to pull back, like, okay, we'll have McDonald's once a week and then eat healthy the other so many days a week, there was this like balance that we had to come up with.
I'm thinking about Autumn being born, and when we were, first we'd been married, I guess, maybe 7 years or something, and Autumn was born, and I knew I was going to step back from dancing, and I was still working at that time, auditioning and doing jobs and teaching and stepping back. And then you were traveling, doing X Games all over the place. And so it was such, for me, like a totally different switch that I wasn't quite used to. So learning to even balance, like, okay, now he's out there doing all of these things. I'm going to stay home a little bit more and get back into those kinds of things. But the balance of even understanding that, or even like the tag team, then when I got back into working a little bit more, it was like, you would come home, you would have her, and then maybe I would go for the weekend to do a teaching job. Or, we really went through a lot of that, and we continued with that with like a tag
team. It's like juggling balls.
Yeah. But it was so interesting. And we went through so many different times in our life where monetarily things were great, monetarily things were bad, things were fantastic with the kids, things were not good, things were great for our relationship, things were not. So we've had to balance and kind of pivot and shift, especially being what I want to say artist, or in a non-traditional work setting, what we had to continue to do. I was thinking about, one time when Harbor was little, and he was actually dancing and doing some comps and playing soccer at the same time. And I thought about when you said the juggling of the balls, and we were at a dance competition, and Autumn had done a number, and we drove to the soccer game, which was 2 hours away, for him to play soccer. And then we got back in the car and drove back to the competition, and Harbor competed. And then Autumn competed again. And we spent, 7 hours of the car back and forth, just trying to even organize what one day looked like, having two young kids in dance and a boy in soccer at the time. And this was years and years ago. But just even like that was like the balance of just even organizing that one day. And I can't imagine when people have more than two kids, how to do that.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I know this is a little bit off topic, but one of the things that it reminds me of is and where it parallels to dance to me is like when we try to dance together, obviously you being a professional dancer, right?
I do like to lead.
I remember like even doing some ballroom dancing early days, and trying to find that flow of like not stepping on each other's toes, or I move one way and then we move into each other, or like finding the flow of dancing. Like that's kind of how it is, and it does take time. You don't, like, even in dance, you don't like just learn a routine and it flows perfect right away. It takes time, you know what I mean? And like, it just, I don't know why, I was thinking about dance, and I was thinking about balance and life schedules, and I was just reminding me of a couple dancing. Like,
well, even right now with the podcast, when we're going back and forth, because we are kind of just winging it, we want it to be as real as possible. And if I was talking at home, I think I would want to be like interjecting every 5 seconds, saying something. I'm like, okay, don't say anything.
You're holding your breath while I'm talking.
He's still talking, but it's so funny because you have to find a flow of what feels good. I remember even when we started our first podcast, it felt like we were crashing into the microphone and crashing into each other, and like, are we talking? Are we looking like, all the funny things? And it's so interesting because it does have
we're still learning.
Well, yes, we're getting a little better, I hope. I think communication is probably the biggest thing with trying to balance kids' marriage. I think you have to communicate. I'm a scheduler. He's not. But I think if you can create, for instance, you are much more a morning person. I like my morning routine at home, and you were much more apt to take Harbor in the morning to soccer every morning when he was going to Galaxy in the academy. And then if I could sneak away, I can do the pickup at 3 or 3:30, and you could watch the studio. So it was interesting. We knew that that's kind of what works for us, and that built over time.
Yeah.
And we also had to have outside help because when your kids are that busy and doing so many things, or going up to auditions when they were young and pulling them out of school and then bringing them home for homework and then heading out and eating dinner in a crock pot. I think, like we said, really we started the studio so that we could have more time with our own kids, because it was the one thing that was missing in our life. So to be able to be done on Mondays and Wednesdays at 5:00 was a huge thing, to add 2 more days a week into our schedule, to actually not be doing a drive-through, not be, eating out of a crock pot, being able to be home and cook and have that meal at the dinner table, which I think is really missing today.
And I think we are lucky because we do get to work together. We get to see each other. But what about families that, the husband and the wife don't work together, or they're separate, or the mom's home all day? It's a different dynamic too. And he's got to work till 6. He can't help with the morning or the night. So that part seems like it would be really difficult too. But you have to find what works for your family and find that own balance and that symmetry, right? Like in your schedule, in what you guys are doing. And I think that's the key, really. It's not like we did it right or they did it wrong, or they're doing it right and we're doing it wrong. It's what works for you, and what can get you the most with what you have, time and everything.
And I think whether you are someone that has crazy 9 to 5 hours, or, whatever your schedule is, I think just being prepared. I think as a mom, the one thing that really helped me was try not to wait for the laundry to be all during the week. That only just adds more havoc. So if you can do it on the weekend, or you can get that done so that all the dance clothes are there, the soccer stuff is there. I mean, I'm not a huge meal prepper. As I've gotten older, I've been better at it. Just knowing what I'm going to cook. Are the groceries there? Little things like that. When Wednesday at 3:30 or 4, you have nothing to eat. The kids got to be 5 different places. Your husband is coming home and he's grouchy. And now the whole thing is just like, ugh. And then when your energy has been sucked all day from whether it's doing things, at home or at work, sometimes that can really cause problems. So I think my advice with something like that would just be to try to stay ahead of just the home things. That will at least help, so that even when you get home, your family has that time together that doesn't feel as irritable or crabby or cranky, because we all know that we're very tired when the day comes, no matter what we're doing.
And my last note for me is that what you just said, but then also don't be afraid to add in spontaneous things into your life. I feel like that was another really beneficial thing that we did, whether it was like, you know what, everyone's off for these 3 days, we're going to go to the beach, or you know what, we don't feel like eating in tonight, we're all going to dinner. But having these spontaneous moments where everyone's kind of excited because it's like a little new and it's out of routine.
And you're so much better at that than me. You've taught me that. And actually, it's really been nice. And I even feel more happy about kind of getting out of the routine sometimes.
Yeah. And I really think that allows for communication. It allows for us to be like out of our, box for a second and really, like you said, be more present sometimes. Sometimes it's harder to be present when you're in a routine all the time, So just making sure you have like these moments to step out of it. That's all I want to add to this, because I feel like that's really important.
That's great. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about basically like the perspectives on true sports and dance. I think the thing that comes to my mind is mentality. There is a lot more mental balance that needs to be handled than sometimes even just the physical part. Right. And we don't see that a lot of times. What does that pressure feel like? How does Harbor handle that when it's like, here you go, you are 18 years old, you are starting on a field with grown men that have families and children, and you are in such a different place in your life. How does that pressure feel? Someone's commentating about you 24/7. People are posting about you, whether you're good, bad, indifferent. So I think the mental part of sports, the mental part of dance, Autumn has quite a few followers, and so people want to judge her just based off of that. Like, you can't be as good as how many followers you have, or you're only good at this. And I don't think people really realize, even as you're building and trying to create something for yourself, the mental part. Are you strong enough to really push through?
Yeah, no, mental is huge.
Nerves. How do you handle nerves?
I feel like the biggest thing that I've like learned watching both Autumn and Harbor is that they stay grounded in the routine, kind of like in the training, in the journey, right? If they stay grounded in that, like, it's just another day for them, even if the stage is a little bit bigger, but they know how much better are you if you know you've done it 10 times versus if you've done it once, right? So you try to get in those situations where you're giving yourself high pressure moments in your training too, right? So making sure that, whether it's a dance class, you're getting in front of people that make you nervous, or whether it's soccer, making sure you're at a high enough level that it's pushing you to be a little bit nervous or to be a little bit out of like...
So you can understand kind of how that nervous energy comes through.
So that by the 10th, 15th time, or by the time you're actually on the big stage, you're like, okay, like, I mean, even Autumn will say to this day, probably, you talked about Beyonce earlier, like, that audition was probably harder and more scary than actually the stage part, right? Because it was a small room. They were choreographing and they were judging you right in front of you, telling you things, versus a stage when you have, 80,000 people and music and lights and all these other things. Even though it's scary, it's not as like pressure as that moment was, you know?
And understanding how to handle it. So I think that's actually really an excellent thought, is practicing it. We do a lot of mock auditions here. Can you practice what that feels like? But then it's really about what kid takes that practicing seriously. Because some people are like, it's not an audition. It's not really. I'm like,
yeah, so I don't have to worry.
Yeah. And then once you get out there, you're going, oh my goodness, like, what do I really do? I wish I would have really thought about it. And I think understanding taking yourself out of the comfort zone, right? I think no one really wants to do that, whether it's taking a class that's a little bit more scary. Maybe you're not a vocalist, but you want to learn how to sing. You got to start kind of coming out of what that's going to feel like. And even with athletes, I think understanding that the more prepared that you are, that's all you can do is prepare yourself for, whether it's even like your cognitive development, like what's happening on the sides, your peripheral vision. Like, are you spatially aware at an audition? Are you going to be smacking someone? Now you're distracted over here. So how do you kind of balance out what those pressures feel like? And I think it's practice.
I think too, it's taking risks, right?
Yeah.
Do you always stand in the back? Like, okay, for this part, I'm going to stand in the front. Do you always play a certain way on the field? Okay, today I'm going to try something different. I'm going to shoot with my left or my right, or I'm going to, really just do turns on my left today only. Like, taking yourself, challenging yourself in your like daily training, I think is another really good way to like.
And I thought about that too with like the mental part. Like, when you have a good day and you like your fit and your hair's done, your makeup, you're like, okay, you feel differently. I mean, especially for dancers, and we are staring at ourselves in a mirror all day long. No one really wants to do that, but that is kind of how it is. And when you feel like you look your best, or you feel like your body feels the strongest, or you feel confident enough in all of even like your physical showing up, I think that really helps too, and really helps give you a mental confidence that will at least give you the push to do your best.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of study lately about like just mental talk. Like, what do you say to yourself under your breath, in your mind, in your heart? Like, people think, okay, I'm going to talk. I talk positive once, and then all of a sudden, things don't go so well the next weeks. But just like you would practice dance or soccer or whatever you're doing, practicing like a mindful, positive thought, provoking energy all day long is practice. If I tell myself every day I look at the mirror and I just block out those bad thoughts all the time, and I'm just like, I'm the best, I'm amazing, I got this today, oh, I like my hair, I like my outfit, that's going to like eventually break into your brain and break into your cells. And I know there's a lot of studies on it. I'm not no professional at it, but I've read a lot of things and I've seen a lot of like studies that this is actually being proven to be much more impactful than we think.
I have been really working on meditating, and it brings me to the mantras in meditation. I'm not good at it either, but I really am one of those people that can get worked up with a lot. So I started with just some like basic breathing skills and have been really working through that. But even the mantras, being able to talk to yourself, I am ready, I am peaceful, I am powerful, I am confident. Things that you start talking to yourself and then being able to share it with other people. You are confident. You are ready.
Thank you.
You are awesome. You know, all the things. Because I think if you feel that in your heart of hearts and you're able to actually put that on other people and then other people put that on other people, all of a sudden you have this world that just seems so much more
spiritual
confident
woman.
and powerful. I love it.
That
but
makes
it's really,
me smile so big when you say
it's
that.
really been something I've worked on. I'm new to meditating. It's been it's been 1 year. And I would say I'm trying it, 5 days a week for 10 minutes. And I feel like it's really changed my perspective, and talking to yourself positively, your algorithm on your social media, what positively comes up, because sometimes my algorithm, I get so mad at it. I'm like, no, I don't like this. And when I go back to really liking and listening to all these amazing things, I just think the more positivity that's out in the world, that you feel confident and you're positive, you can just share it, and it's just, the world's a better place like that.
I mean, that's amazing. I feel like we kind of end on that. I've always said, when you feel like down or bad, give or work for someone or do something for someone. It always comes back to you. It just always does. Like, I feel like that's just a good place, I feel like, to finish up.
Yeah, maybe a couple, like just maybe takeaways. I think you said it in the beginning, create rhythms, not rigid rules. I'm more of the rules, you're more of the rhythm, and when we come together, it feels so much nicer to be able to have a good rhythm, find a sync that works for you and your family.
Ooh, I love the rhythm.
Learning to say no. This one I'm still working on because I'm kind of the yes person, and then I'm mad about it and grumbling under my breath and tired and exhausted, and I have no more energy after. So you are so good with protecting your energy. You've learned a lot and taught me a lot about that too.
But no, I mean, even not saying no, just saying, hey, this is going to serve me better than that is. You know what I mean? Like, for the moment.
Or rescheduling the no.
Yeah.
Doesn't work for me this week. Actually, it works for me in 3 weeks. Like, to me, if someone asks me for a meeting, my first reaction is, tomorrow I have
Everything
time.
Possible.
And I'm thinking, actually, no. That meeting, as long as it's nothing crazy, I can push that.
Yeah. What else?
I think just being able to go to mentors, coaches for a perspective is really good. I encourage students, athletes, dancers to talk to people, ask about it. I'm feeling a certain way. How can you help me? That's what we're here for.
I think that's one big thing.
People
There's
are
a
scared.
lot of people afraid to ask questions. And I feel like coaches, mentors, choreographers, as long as you're in the right context, they want to help you. You know what I mean? So, like, let them know. I feel like sometimes we can't assume. Everyone expects you to know. I think because we have the social media and they're like, oh, you didn't see my story last week? I was like, if someone asks you a question, I'm like, no, I must have missed your life. I missed something.
Sorry.
So tell me about it.
I was in my life for a second.
So I feel like communication, babe, you talked about that earlier too. I feel like that is huge. Whether it's, communicating how you feel, communicating how your body's doing, communicating what you want even. Like, sometimes you don't even know what people want, You assume things.
Yeah.
So communication.
Lastly, I think balance is moving. It's not the final destination. So your balance is always going to be shifting and changing. And to really think about that. You can't just get balanced and stay like that. Your tires are never always balanced in your
Have you ever seen a person on a teeter-totter? It's always or on those tight ropes.
I think I would love to maybe even challenge, people that are listening to find one place in your life that you want to push pause on and one place in your life that you want to push more. Start thinking of those things,
good.
challenge
I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, think about it. Or, try to really think about, could you write some notes in a journal? We're big journalers over here. How can you be more balanced in long-term goals, whether that's financial, maybe it's jobs, maybe it's family. Just, I think paying more attention to balance, because really I think life is all about balance. And if you can gain it, and remember, it's going to move. Find your rhythm. Find your dancing partner. I think it'll be really great for you. So thanks for listening. Inside the Space with the Millers. Leave us comments and send us some of your balance techniques. I'd love to know.
Honey, you did a great job.
Not bad for you too.
That's awesome.
We'll be back again soon.
Peace.